Preparing a simple feast in 16th century France. Imagine a quiet morning in the French countryside. The year is 1545. The sun is just beginning to crest over the misty hills, spilling golden light across rows of kitchen gardens, fruit trees, and the tiled roofs of a modest noble household. Inside the stone manor, a fire is already crackling in the hearth, filling the kitchen with warmth and the scent of burning oak. Today, we are preparing a simple feast, a reflection not of courtly extravagance, but of the quiet rhythm of rural life in 16th century France. A feast, yes, but one rooted in season and soil. The kind of meal that marks a saint's day, a harvest celebration, or simply the arrival of welcome guests. Here, cooking is not a frantic rush of recipes and timers, but a deliberate unfolding of tasks known by memory and repetition. Each ingredient is a gift of the land, grown, gathered, or preserved with care. Our table will be set with roast pork shoulder, herb-stuffed trout, a hearty root vegetable pottage, cheese and leek pillows, rustic hearth bread, and stewed apples spiced with cinnamon and honey. It may sound luxurious to us now, but to the people of that time, it was a modest yet satisfying affair. We begin with the pork, a shoulder portion, brined for several days in salt and water to preserve and tenderize. It is rubbed with crushed mustard seeds, black pepper, and a splash of vinegar before being tied with string and set beside the open fire. There it will roast slowly for hours, basting in its own fat, turned regularly by hand. The aroma it produces, mingled with smoke and spice, will fill the entire house. Next comes the pottage, a beloved staple across classes. Into a large cauldron go chopped carrots, leeks, onions, and turnips, whatever the garden yields in this season, along with a handful of barley for texture. A generous amount of water, a few pinches of salt, and a bundle of thyme and parsley are added before it simmers over the hearth. It bubbles quietly, gradually thickening as the root vegetables break down. It is simple, sustaining, and shared. While the pottage cooks, attention turns to the cheese and leek pillows. A mixture of soft cheese, eggs, finely chopped leeks, and herbs is combined with flour to form soft dumplings. These are hand-shaped and laid carefully onto a hot stone, turned until each side is golden. Their scent, cheesy and herbal, adds a new layer to the kitchen's fragrant symphony. Trout is next. In regions with nearby rivers or well-stocked ponds, fresh fish was a frequent presence. A whole trout is carefully cleaned, then stuffed with breadcrumbs, chopped parsley, and lemon peel, the latter a rare but treasured item in more prosperous homes. Wrapped in leaves, often fig or grape, the trout is nestled directly into the hearth embers, the leaves protecting it from burning while sealing in flavor. Bread, of course, cannot be forgotten. In the 16th century, baking was a communal act, often done in a village oven. But households with their own hearths would bake small loaves as needed. A coarse, dark dough made from rye or barley is shaped and placed on a flat stone or clay tile beside the fire. It rises slowly, aided only by ambient warmth. The crust will be thick and rustic, the crumb dense, perfect for dipping into stews or soaking up meat juices. As the feast nears its conclusion, attention turns to sweetness. Apples, peeled and sliced, are stewed in a copper pot with honey, a splash of vinegar, and a pinch of cinnamon, imported and expensive, yet used sparingly in noble homes. The fruit softens, the syrup thickens, and the scent is warm, nostalgic, and gently spiced. Throughout the day, servants tend the fire, adjust pots, and test flavors. Nothing is measured with precision. It is the senses, smell, sight, taste, touch, that guide the cook's hands. There are no cookbooks, no written recipes, only experience passed from one generation to the next. As the afternoon sun wanes, the table is laid. Not with the gleaming silver of a royal court, but with sturdy pewter, wood, and earthenware. Bread is torn, not sliced. Food is served communally. There is no ceremony here, no courses paraded by servants. Only the quiet joy of gathering, of eating, of surviving another season together. The pottage is ladled into bowls, followed by platters of sliced pork, trout gleaming with herbs, and the soft cheese pillows. There is laughter, clinking cups, and stories shared. When the apples are brought out, steaming and sweet, it is the final note in a meal not just for the body, but for the soul. This is how people ate, cooked, and lived, close to the land, guided by time, tradition, and the fire that never quite went out. A simple feast, yes, but rich in every sense that mattered. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the past. May it inspire a little more patience, a little more gratitude, and a little more beauty in your own kitchen today. How a shepherd spent their days in the 1500s. Before the modern world awoke to the buzz of electricity, the click of machinery, or the hum of highways, life moved at the pace of hooves, footsteps, and wind. In the quiet corners of 16th century Europe, one of the most ancient of professions carried on much as it had for millennia. The shepherd, a solitary figure often seen from a distance, staff in hand, dog at heel, was more than a caretaker of sheep. They were a part of the land, the seasons, and the slow pulse of a world shaped by nature. Today, we step into the life of a shepherd in the 1500s. Not a nobleman, not a merchant, but an ordinary soul whose day began and ended under the open sky. Our shepherd wakes before the sun. The light has not yet reached the eastern hills, but the cockerel calls, and the day begins. A simple meal of bread, perhaps soaked in milk if a cow is kept at the cottage, is all that breaks the fast. There is no luxury here, no coffee, no clock, no rush. Just a steady rhythm. The shepherd pulls on coarse woolen garments, often homemade or patched many times, and reaches for the tools of the trade, a crook, a pouch of salted meat or cheese for later, and most importantly, the help of a faithful dog. The sheep are kept in a pen near the edge of the village or manor grounds. Their bleating is low and restless, they are ready to move. With a few calls and gestures, the dog circles them into motion, and the small flock begins its daily journey to the hills or pastures that lie beyond the boundaries of fields. The shepherd's route varies by season. In spring and summer, there is fresh grazing in the high meadows, and the journey is longer. In autumn, the fields are full of stubble left from harvest, and the sheep can graze closer to home. Winter brings challenges, sparse forage, bitter winds, and sometimes deep snow. But always, the shepherd walks. Along the way, the shepherd observes everything: the weather, the sky, the condition of the sheep, and the signs of other animals. A broken fence might suggest a poacher, a paw print in the mud, a fox or wolf. The dog is alert, trotting beside or darting ahead to scout the way. This is not just a routine but a constant vigilance. Predators are real, and a single attack can devastate a poor man's flock. Once the pasture is reached, the shepherd's work is far from done. The flock must be watched closely, no straying, no nibbling on forbidden crops. The shepherd may pass the time carving wood, twisting wool into cord, mending clothing, or even composing simple songs. Shepherds were known for their tunes, often sung to pass the long hours, echoing over the valleys. These songs were not just for amusement, but also a way to soothe the sheep and stave off loneliness. There is rest, of course. A meal of bread and cheese, sometimes an onion or an apple if one is in season. Water from a stream. And always, eyes on the flock. A good shepherd learns each sheep by sight, knows which one limps, which is bold, which is prone to stray. In some regions, shepherds formed networks, meeting at crossroads or shared grazing lands. They exchanged news, warnings, even small goods. But often, the day was solitary. By late afternoon, the sun begins its descent, and the flock must be gathered. The dog works again, flanking and circling, driving the sheep into motion. The walk home is slower, the animals tired. The shepherd may sing again, a low, repetitive chant that helps the sheep stay calm. Once back, the sheep are penned, and any injured or sick ones are tended to. A shepherd is also a healer, armed with knowledge of herbs, poultices, and simple treatments. Wool is examined, and if it's time for shearing, plans are made. A portion of the wool is owed to the landlord, a tithe to the church. As twilight deepens, the shepherd returns to the cottage, a thatched hut or shared lodging if working on a manor. The evening meal is simple and warm, a pottage of grains and vegetables, perhaps a bit of smoked meat. By firelight, clothes are mended, tools repaired, and stories told, if family is near. If not, the shepherd listens to the night, owls, wind, the occasional howl far off in the hills. Life is seasonal. Spring brings lambs, delicate and skittish. Summer means long days and abundant grass. Autumn is a time of accounting, shearing, and preparing for winter. And winter itself is harsh. Sometimes, sheep must be fed from stored hay. Flocks are smaller, losses more likely. But still, the shepherd walks. Religion plays a quiet but steady role. A prayer at morning, a stop at a roadside shrine, or attendance at church on holy days. The shepherd knows the saints of animals, Saint Blaise, Saint Francis, Saint Genevieve, and may keep a carved talisman or blessed token. Life is fragile, and the divine is never far from thought. Education is rare. Most shepherds cannot read, though some may learn to count or mark tallies with sticks or stones. They know the land better than most, every hollow, every tree, every track. In some regions, they are envied for their freedom, in others, pitied for their isolation. But always, the shepherd is necessary. This humble figure appears in poems, parables, and paintings. Not because of wealth or fame, but because of the role they play. A bridge between wild and tame, between earth and human need. In their quiet, persistent work, they embody endurance, patience, and care. As we imagine the stars emerging above a 16th-century pasture, as a shepherd settles by the fire with dog curled at his feet, we are reminded, history is not made only in castles and courts. It is made also in the quiet footsteps that press into mud and grass, again and again, day after day, through all seasons. Thank you for walking with us through the life of a shepherd in the 1500s. In their story, we find not just a glimpse of the past, but a lesson for the present, in simplicity, in attention, and in the enduring rhythm of the land. A blacksmith's slow, rhythmic work. In a world before engines, before conveyor belts and assembly lines, before steel was pressed and poured by machines, there was the forge. In nearly every village and town of medieval and early modern Europe, the blacksmith's workshop stood at the center, close to the market, near the manor, beside the crossroads. It was a place of smoke, heat, and hammering, a place where raw iron met fire and muscle and was born into something both practical and powerful. Today, we step into the life of a blacksmith in the 1500s, a man whose trade was as old as civilization itself. Not a soldier, though he made their swords. Not a farmer, though he shod their horses. Not a noble, but vital to all. This is the story of a craftsman, a laborer, and an artisan, whose days were filled with smoke, sweat, rhythm, and fire. The blacksmith's day begins before dawn. While the world is still cold and quiet, the smith stokes the embers of the forge, banked the night before. A bellows is worked to breathe life into the coals, and slowly, the fire glows orange, then red, and finally white-hot. This fire is more than warmth, it is the heart of the smith's work, a tool just as vital as the hammer or anvil. Clothed in a leather apron and rough woolen shirt, the blacksmith is usually broad of shoulder and calloused of hand. His skin is weathered, his arms strong from the constant hammering. Sparks burn holes in his sleeves. His eyes are often reddened from the smoke. His hands bear scars, not only from accidents, but from the everyday demands of shaping iron. But what exactly is expected of a blacksmith? Almost everything. In a village, he is the maker and mender of tools, plowshares, sickles, hoes, and spades. Without his forge, farming itself grinds to a halt. He shoes horses, repairs wagons, crafts nails, hinges, locks, and latches. He makes the blades of knives, the heads of axes, and the hooks that hang pots over hearths. When war comes, he turns his hand to spearheads, swords, and arrow tips. When peace returns, he shapes gates, fences, and perhaps the iron framework of a church door. He is the quiet spine of the working world. But none of this happens without materials. And materials, in the 1500s, do not come easily. Iron must be sourced, either locally mined or bought from a traveling merchant. Charcoal is needed for the forge, not common firewood, which burns too coolly, but special charcoal made from carefully burned hardwood. This too must be gathered or purchased. A blacksmith in a rural village may spend as much time securing materials as he does shaping them. He must know the forest well, perhaps striking agreements with charcoal burners to supply him with fuel. He may walk or ride many miles to reach a town market where pig iron or wrought iron is sold. If his forge is part of a larger estate or manor, he may be supplied directly by the lord, but this, too, comes with expectations. Because a blacksmith is not always free. In manorial systems, the smith may be a bondman, his labor owed to the lord in return for land or lodging. He may be paid in kind, grain, cloth, or firewood, rather than in coin. Even in freer towns, he is often bound by the rules of guilds, who set standards for quality, price, and apprenticeship. He must walk the line between independence and obligation. Yet despite the difficulties, there is pride in the work. To shape metal is to command one of nature's hardest elements. Few professions give such visible, tangible results. A blacksmith sees his labor take form within minutes, the glow of hot iron, the bend under the hammer, the hiss of cooling in water. Each piece is a negotiation between mind, muscle, and material. His work is slow, but rhythmic. Heat the metal. Strike. Turn. Strike again. Back into the fire. Pull it out. Strike. The anvil rings out with a steady beat, different in every shop, but always familiar. This rhythm is not just physical, it is mental. The smith must know by iron feel when the iron is ready, how much force is needed, which tools to use. There are no gauges, no timers, only intuition, honed through years. Many blacksmiths are solitary, but not all. A larger forge might employ a striker, a younger man or apprentice who swings a heavier hammer under the smith's guidance. The master holds the workpiece with tongs and gives signals, 1 tap for strike, 2 for pause. Together, they move in harmony, a dance of sparks and steel. Apprenticeship is how blacksmithing knowledge is passed down. A boy of 12 or 13 might begin as an apprentice, sweeping the floor, fetching tools, pumping the bellows. Slowly, he learns to shape nails, then horseshoes, then tools. After several years, he may become a journeyman, traveling from forge to learn different styles. Only after this, and with approval, can he become a master and open his own shop. But the path is not easy. The work is punishing. Heat in summer, cold in winter, burns, smoke, exhaustion. There are good days, when the forge glows hot and the metal yields. And there are bad days, when iron cracks, when charcoal runs low, when customers complain or coins are few. And then, there are the other struggles. Competition from neighboring smiths. Tensions with merchants or lords. Sometimes, accusations of dishonesty or shoddy work. A bent plowshare might cause a harvest to fail. A poorly shod horse might go lame. The stakes are high, and trust is hard-earned. Even more, there are times when the blacksmith is feared. His work with fire and metal places him close to the mysterious. In folklore, the forge is a magical place. The anvil, the hammer, symbols of power. In some tales, blacksmiths are clever tricksters. In others, they are sorcerers, making pacts with dark forces. The line between craftsman and magician is thin, and many smiths know old charms or blessings said while working iron. They might etch protective runes into tools or offer a nail to be buried at the threshold of a house. The spiritual side of smithing is quiet but real. Iron is seen as a purifying force. Iron nails ward off spirits. An iron horseshoe above the door protects from the evil eye. The smith, whether he believes it or not, participates in this world of belief. He also plays a social role. The forge is a gathering place. Travelers stop to ask directions. Children peer through the smoke to watch the sparks. Villagers bring gossip with their broken tools. The blacksmith may be silent while he works, or he may speak freely, but he always listens. He knows who quarrels with whom, whose harvest failed, who cannot pay their debts. His status is complex. He is not a lord, but he is not the poorest. His skill is essential, his tools expensive. His labor is visible, his products used by all. In times of need, he is relied upon. In times of peace, sometimes forgotten, but never irrelevant. Evenings are quiet. The forge is banked again, the tools cleaned, the day's work hung or stacked. The blacksmith may drink ale, speak with family, or sit in silence. His body aches, his clothes are sooty, but his work is done. Tomorrow it begins again. Throughout the seasons, his work changes. Spring brings tools for planting. Summer, the repair of carts and wagons. Autumn is a busy time, harvest tools, blades, and horseshoes for travel. Winter is for slower work, hinges, locks, and fine ironwork. There are holidays and feast days, times when the forge goes quiet. But mostly, the rhythm continues. Over a lifetime, a blacksmith will make tens of thousands of pieces. Some will break. Some will pass from hand to hand. Some may outlive him by centuries, a blade buried in a wall, a nail in a church beam, a hinge on an old barn door. His name may not be remembered, but his work will be. This is the legacy of the blacksmith. Slow, rhythmic, enduring. Thank you for joining us in the world of the 16th century forge. May the sparks of this story kindle an appreciation for the quiet power of those who shape the world, not with words, but with fire and steel. And so, from the fire-warmed forge to the wide, wind-blown pastures, from the quiet of the fields to the bustling rhythm of the kitchen, we come to the close of our journey. 3 lives, 3 callings, a blacksmith, a shepherd, and a cook, each bound not by wealth or power, but by craft, by the patient shaping of the world with hands, with tools, with time. They lived without fame. Their names do not echo in history books. But they held up their communities. They made the tools that tilled the soil. They guarded the flocks that clothed and fed. They prepared the meals that brought warmth and meaning to the table. Their days were long, their challenges many. They faced cold mornings, sore limbs, hungry mouths, and uncertain seasons. Yet still, they rose. Still, they worked. Still, they made. In their labor, we see something quietly profound, the rhythm of a world shaped not by kings or conquests, but by ordinary hands doing necessary things. So let us remember that the past was not built only in castles and courts, but also in fields, by firelight and over simmering pots. And perhaps, in understanding their world, we better understand our own. Thank you for walking this path with us.